Cola, available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga distributors. Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Brand Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. West Bay Pharmacy, taking care of your health. And JN Money.
From abroad to yard.
Fast, affordable, convenient. Doctor's Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctor's Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Canaan Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, O land of soft, fresh breezes and verdant trees so fair. Today is Wednesday, the 30th day of November 2022, right here in the beautiful Cayman Islands. We hope and we trust that everyone had a restful, peaceful, enjoyable evening. Those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, whether you're a pedestrian or a cyclist, or if you're operating any type of motorized vehicle, we urge you to please, please, please be extremely cautious. Ensure that you observe the rules of the road. It is not a free, or it should not be a free-for-all out there on our roads. There are rules to be followed. There are people's lives that are at risk, including your own. So, drive carefully, observe the rules of the road, including using your indicators whenever you're navigating a roundabout or whenever you're changing directions. Using your high beam, and if you don't know what the high beam is, your bright lights, only when absolutely necessary, and taking into consideration the cars that are coming from the opposite direction, that you may blind those as well. If you don't know when your vehicle's light is on a high beam or on a low beam, there should be an indicator, a light indicator on your dashboard, somewhere where all of the monitors, the control monitors are, and it'll either be green or blue when your high beams are on. I personally believe that there are many drivers out there who do not know that there's a dip switch on their vehicle, that they can change their headlights from high beam to low beam as well. If you don't know, ask someone. Don't be ashamed to ask someone to show you where it is. But that can be extremely annoying, and it can cause accidents if you blind the drivers coming in the opposite direction. Not only that, the vehicles that may be in front of you as well. If you have your high beams on, then when they look in their rearview mirror, it's brighter than usual. You could blind them that way, as well. So if you don't know all of these things, then I suggest, first of all, I would say to you that you are not a qualified driver. And I say that with no reservations whatsoever. You are not a qualified driver if you don't know all of these things, all right? There is obviously some problem with our licensing system that we have if you have not been tested and all of these things. And you are a menace on our roads. You're a danger to the other drivers on the road. So my suggestion to you would be to reacquaint yourself with the rules of the road. Buy that handbook that tells you everything. Nothing wrong with that. Yes, you have the license, but if you don't know how to drive, then you're a problem for yourself and you're a problem for all of those other persons on the road as well. So that's enough of my lecturing this morning about driving on our roads, but it is extremely important because we're seeing too many accidents taking place. Holiday season coming up now as well. People will be partying and everything else. And of course, you shouldn't be drinking and driving as well. But we will remind you of all of those things later on as well. Those of you who are celebrating a birthday today, we want to wish you a happy birthday, or if you celebrated one over the past few days, a belated happy birthday to you. For those of you who have lost loved ones, we want to extend our sincere condolences to you. We hope and we trust that your faith will help to carry you through these extremely challenging times, and that the memories of your loved ones will be a blessing to you as well. For those of you who are ill and are either at home or at a medical facility here in the Cayman Islands or overseas, we wish you a speedy recovery as well. So folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, wherever that may be. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. During that period, our phone lines are open. Beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson waiting to take your calls. You can call us on this morning. Our toll-free number is not working, so but when it is working, the toll-free number 1-800-534-8255. In the absence of the toll-free number, you can call us on 949-8037, 949-6990. Email us at fortherecord, one word, fortherecord at candw.ky. WhatsApp us 925-3261, where you can send us a text message or leave us a voice note. You can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream, and we are also on Facebook as well. And to remind you that the birthday shout-outs this morning are proudly brought to you by life insurance agent Michael Webster from Cayman Insurance Center. He reminds you to make the right decision for your family's future today. So we don't have too many birthday messages coming in today, but if you do, send them to us and we will fit them in somewhere during the course of the discussion, or during the course of the show this morning, I should say, not the course of the discussion, but during the course of the show. We have taken the opportunity to invite Minister Andre Ebanks, as well as his team, to return to our show this morning to continue to discuss the National Identification Program, the two bills that are going to our Parliament next week as well. Many of you have spoken about the consultation process and everything. We know, we are certain of this because we see it happen all of the time. When district meetings are held and people are invited to come out to talk about issues, very seldom is there adequate turnout. So other approaches have to be taken to try to reach the public, either to pique their interest in a particular subject or to inform them. So other methods have to be used. The old-fashioned way of town hall meetings does not work in the Cayman Islands, and we in the Cayman Islands have a terrible habit of leaving things for the last minute and then saying, oh, I didn't get an opportunity to check this out, to read it. I didn't know anything about it. Can we have some more time, to be able, and then you do that, and then there's still no feedback. So the government and this specific ministry is taking every advantage to inform you about this national identification program that is being rolled out. So I've taken the opportunity to invite them on again this morning. They have availed themselves of that opportunity. I'm going to take an early commercial break to have them seated. When they when they're in the studio, we will start the discussion, and at some point in time during the course of the show, again, we will open the phone lines for you to be able to discuss it as well. Meanwhile, you can send messages to us on our WhatsApp number, 925-3261. Email us at for the record, one word, for the record, at candw.ky. Please, I am begging you, when you do send comments, please do not send, what should I say? How should I word this now? Send some positive comments, or if you have questions, but not any demeaning comments about the persons who are appearing on the show. We want positive feedback from you. If you don't have positive feedback, then we would prefer not to hear from you at all. Folks, we're going to take an early commercial break. We will have our guests seated. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. The Cayman Islands, He hath founded it upon the seas.
The Wesleyan Ministry Society saw its peak during the 9-month stretch of Reverend John Mearns' tenure in 1842. Mearns, a dedicated man, preached and administered communion in 5 places across the island, frequently traveling 50 miles per week on horseback. This also saw the district of West Bay become home to the first Wesleyan chapel and a second chapel being constructed in Prospect. Congregations as large as 140 members were also reported in central Georgetown. The legislature was very accommodating to Reverend Mearns, permitting him to reside in the parsonage which had been built for the Anglicans and to use the courthouse for service. However, when it came to payment, the legislature later voted down a motion to provide Reverend Mearns with a £5 per quarter subsidy. The motion was defeated 9 votes to 8.
Radio Cayman's Historical Vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
The Atlantic hurricane season is now through November 30. International weather authorities predict up to 21 named storms and 6 major hurricanes. Prepare now. Select your place of safety before the storm. Get supplies now when it's easy to shop, avoiding long lines and crowds. Secure your valuables, your documents, your medicines, your first aid kit. Keep a photographic record of your valuables. Charge your phone, get more credit. Plan where to safely park your car. Preparation now makes sense. A message from Rotary Central, planning ahead for disasters since 1997. Rotary, all the good you imagine.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay.
No one can stop me when I taste the feel.
Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice-cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross, now Advanced Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
West Bay, home to Barkas National Park, the touristy flair, a family community, a political powerhouse. From sports enthusiasts to car aficionados, affection for silver thatch rope. No matter how far you may venture, West Bay will always be where the heart is. Home will always be in West Bay. West Bay Pharmacy, caring for your home and your family. West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient, quality care is just around the corner.
Your dream home starts with a vision, and often inspiration is at the heart of that vision. Brand Source Home Gallery's in-house designers are here to help bring your vision to life. Whether you are remodeling or building a new home, Brand Source Home Gallery is your one-stop solution. Explore their kitchen cabinets, sinks, faucets, bath fixtures, tubs, vanities, and more. Let Brand Source's designers help and inspire you with your next project. Call 623-5000 and schedule an appointment with a design expert at Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, serving Cayman for 50 years.
With costs and insecurities rising, staying grounded and focused is what your family needs. Life insurance covers your family and mortgage protection. Peace of mind is mental health awareness.
Life insurance, the sure way to protect your family. I'm Michael Webster. Don't take chances with your family's future or your valuable assets. Cayman Insurance Center, protecting you and your family so you can take back your future. I'm Michael Webster. Let's discuss your peace of mind today. Call me at 925-5433. Think life insurance.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I know I did give my audience a little dressing down earlier this morning, but I may as well put it out there on the air rather than just basically holding it inside of me, letting people know exactly, how things go. So it is my pleasure to have in the studio with me again this morning the Acting Deputy Chief Officer in the Ministry of Innovation, Mr. Charles Brown. Also with us, again, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, the Director of the E-Government Unit. And I'm going to have Mr. Charles Brown introduce our other two guests in the studio with us. We don't have the Minister this morning. He did point out to me that he had other obligations and there was a possibility that he would not be here. But what is important is that these gentlemen in the studio, they certainly have the ability to explain the document itself. When it comes to policy decisions, those are with the minister, while at the same time he has certainly shown his familiarity with the two bills as well. So, Mr. Brown, over to you. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, O.C. Thank you for having us on again. Good morning, listening public. I would first like to just give apologies for my minister, the Honourable Andre Ebanks. He would have loved to have been here this morning, but unfortunately he had to speak at two conferences this morning. His first stop was to give opening remarks to the Cayman Captive Forum, which is Cayman's largest conference, and then he had to attend and speak at the Caribbean FATF, which is the Financial Action Task Force plenary. And Cayman is due to take the chair for next year as well. So he had to attend those meetings, and we give his apologies. In the studio with me this morning, as you mentioned, is the Director of the E-Government Unit, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, our Senior Policy Advisor, Mr. Trevor Gibbs, and our Policy Advisor, Mr. Sean Hewell.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to For the Record.
So, Osi, I would like to first give just a general overview, as we did last time. We've been talking about this quite a bit, but we would love to focus in a little bit more on the register and the concepts of why there's two bills, etc., etc. We'll give a summary of the clauses in the register bill, and I think then we will be ready to take some questions from the listening public.
Okay.
So, as you recall, last time we spoke, we were discussing that this has been the concept of a national ID has been discussed for the last 35 years. So in 87, it went to the House, didn't make it. 89, it was passed. 13-1. 94, an ID system was supported unanimously. 2007, there was a private member's motion that was passed and supported. This ID was supported by the last administration, and it is now being supported by this administration, and here we are with the bills to actually share with the public as the fruit of all that labor. So it is not coming out of the blue. It is something that has been discussed for 35 years, and as the minister had mentioned, and as many of the MPs will have told you, Caymanians having the ability to say that I'm Caymanian with a card is central to the movement of the national ID. For the first time, I have a printable card that declares that I'm Caymanian, and the benefit of the process of time is the digital capabilities that we now have. So you don't have to have a flat piece of plastic. It has digital features, and we can avail of those digital features. And in short, in relation to why two bills, there's a card bill that talks about how to issue a card and the digital features, and if you want digital signing, and how to surrender that card, and when it needs to be destroyed, how it needs to be protected. So that it has its own complexities and breadth, whereas the register is essentially the bit that the card gets produced from. So the card is a subset of data from the register. So for instance, not all information on the register is on the card. Your address information is not on the card because your address changes. I think the concept of digitally doing something can be a bit hard to explain sometimes. And if you may give me a second, it's really trying to say that I can prove who I am without being there. If I need to apply for a police record, if I need to apply for any service, any application from my bedroom, I am not in front of that person at that counter. But you need to pull up the specific record for my profile, because that's how our laws are structured. Our laws are structured as you may make an application to. So it's not the government being able to go and look at your records in another department. It is you. That's how it's set up. You make an application to get whatever services that you are asking for. So doing this digitally means that remotely you can prove who you are and get access to that type of information. There's a few areas as to how we can share data. And it's just through technological change. We have a paper-based system right now. We're used to shuffling paper, moving paper, printing out paper. If we took away all the printers out of government or even the private sector, we'd be in a complete mess, because that's how we interact. Paper is the output. But technology has allowed us to change and develop. If you recall, when's the last time you heard a home phone ring? There's no more home phones. The mobile phone industry has changed that. And why? It's convenience. Yeah. It's not that a corded telephone is obsolete. No. It's just that there's a new paradigm. And what we're building here is allowing the new paradigm of doing business to happen, to occur. So, and we can do it efficiently, more efficiently. You can do it faster, and you don't have to be there. So it gives you back that time.
And you can do that while still at the same time those persons who are lagging behind or who don't want to come along with it can still continue to exist and do business.
Correct. So a small sector of our populace have some concerns with doing things digitally, and we recognize that for a variety of reasons, they might have those concerns. That's why on the show on Monday, Minister had presented the major areas that he was looking to bring some committee stage amendments to allow the register to be optional, so that anybody in our country can opt in when they feel it's time to do so. So that allows the early adopters to proceed. As we mentioned, we've been waiting 35 years on the ability to go forward, and now we have the ability to meet the gap of identities, the elderly that need a basic ID that can't avail of it, the young that might need to take a test. Here's an ID that's just available to you with no other strings attached. But we go further. It has digital capabilities. So anybody that's hesitant can now wait to say, I will take that up in my own time. I'll observe for a little bit, and I will take it up in my own time. And that depressurizes the situation, because nobody is going to be forced to do anything, not be entered in the register or get the card. They can observe.
Mm-hmm. But if you choose to opt out at this point in time, then you would not have the ability to hold any sort of national identification card. Be it if you're not linked up to the e-government system, you won't be able to obtain one.
So we're talking about digital now, which is a little different than just online with a profile. So there's online services that are available now where you can log in and do certain things. I don't think that will change. But when we talk about having to prove who you are, that's where this technology comes in without a doubt. So for instance, if I want to sell my car and you have a digital ID, I have a digital ID, we theoretically, as if the system was built this way, we could transact to sell. I could sell my car to you digitally, and as soon as you sign and I sign, the car is yours.
Now, in addressing the concerns of those persons who say, at this point in time, I go to a financial institution and they won't accept my voter registration card because it doesn't prove enough. So I have to have probably two pieces of identification, maybe a copy of my passport along with a driver's license or whatever to do it. Are we able to address the needs of those individuals through what is being proposed?
That is the core of definitely providing that gap in all of our focus groups and our discussions. The elderly especially, as they cease to travel, as they cease to drive, they lose the ability to hold these forms of identification, and they may need to do financial transactions. And because the elections card does not have an expiry date, it does not have the ability to be used as a second form of ID or even the primary form of ID. This allows a person to, say, use the passport with the ID card to have two forms of identification.
Okay. Folks, we're going to go to our 8 o'clock news. When we return, the conversation will continue with Mr. Charles Brown, the Acting Deputy Chief Officer in the Ministry of Innovation, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, the Director of the Government Unit, Mr. Trevor Gibbs, the Senior Policy Advisor in the Ministry of Innovation, Mr. Sean, right?
Yes, sir.
Hewell.
Silent W, yes.
Silent W. Mr. Sean Hewell, who's also a policy advisor in the Ministry of Innovation. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Thank you, Mr. Conner. And studio time by Price Right is 7:59.
The wait is over. Price Right's Black Friday sale is now on.
Get our biggest deals of the year on TVs, electronics, kitchen appliances, homewares, groceries, and more.
Save up to $280 on Samsung TVs.
Save $340 on the Rydell Tripster electric bike. And save big on a range of Bluetooth speakers, sheets, and curtains, and so much more.
But hurry, sale ends Wednesday the 30th of November.
Find all the deals at priceright.ky.
Live better for less this Black Friday at Priced Right.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Caymanbrack and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
The 8 a.m. a.m. News is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
For today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office highlighted Cayman's ability to protect artistic creations and brand owners at the invitation-only International Trademark Association Leadership Meeting in Miami. The event took place between the 15th and 19th of November, and discussions centered around the use of copyrights, trade rights, and current legislation and regulations for North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean. The event featured hundreds of intellectual property experts from international law firms and IP offices. Cayman's own CIIPO was set up in May 2016 to register IP, including trademarks, which need to be recorded as part of its legal protection. CIIPO also provides information locally and globally about Cayman's full range of IP protection, which covers inventions and the look and shape of creations. Diabetes Month is wrapping up with a Let's Talk About Diabetes event today from noon until 1 in the Hibiscus Conference Room at the Cayman Islands Hospital. CIGTV's Simon Boxall has the details.
The event will feature a brief discussion by HSA physicians about diabetes, including risks, prevention, management, medications, and more. Guests will be able to ask questions and receive free health screenings such as blood pressure checks and HbA1 glucose and cholesterol screenings. All are invited.
And Truman-Bodden Law School students Nathania Tibbetts and Xavier Ebanks traveled with Truman-Bodden Law School Assistant Director Andrew Perkins to Trinidad and Tobago to take part in the American Caribbean Law Initiative Moot. The initiative facilitates the collaboration between legal institutions in the Caribbean and the United States and hopes to strengthen and develop legal relationships and give local law students the opportunity to work on legal problems collaboratively. The duo worked with students from across the region before presenting arguments to justices of the Trinidad and Tobago Court of Appeal and the Caribbean Court of Justice. They earned this opportunity by reaching the final of the TBLS internal mooting competition in 2021. In regional news, the Bahamas has recorded 120 murders for 2021, surpassing the entire figure last year of 119. This statistic was released as police announced the murder of a man in his mid-20s who was found with gunshot wounds on Monday. They said the man was shot somewhere else and his body dumped at the scene. The Bahamas recorded 73 murders in 2020, 95 in 2019, and 91 in 2018. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Carsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. The former Chinese leader Jiang Zemin has died in Shanghai. He was 96. Jiang Zemin took over from Deng Xiaoping in the aftermath of the Tiananmen Square massacre in 1989. He was in power during China's dramatic rise in prosperity and global influence. But he also presided over increased religious repression, corruption and environmental degradation. There have been further protests against China's zero-COVID policy. Demonstrators rallied overnight in the southern city of Guangzhou. Officials in Afghanistan say a blast inside a religious school has killed at least 17 people in the province of Samangan. Dozens of students had gathered for afternoon prayers. More than 25 people were injured. Most of those killed were children. The Pakistani Taliban has attacked a police van in the city of Quetta, killing at least 3 people. The police were escorting a polio vaccination team. The militants ended a months-long ceasefire 2 days ago. The US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, following a meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Romania, says the alliance will continue its unified backing of Ukraine in the war against Russia. He warned President Putin that his strategy of destroying infrastructure would not work. The Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has called on the United States to drop its case against the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, saying enough is enough. Mr. Assange is wanted by Washington for leaking documents related to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Anti-government protesters in Iran have been celebrating the national football team's loss to the US in the World Cup. Some see the team as another representation of Iran's government. And those are the latest stories from BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com. Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Town. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
The Atlantic hurricane season is now through November 30. International weather authorities predict up to 21 named storms and 6 major hurricanes. Prepare now. Select your place of safety before the storm. Get supplies now when it's easy to shop, avoiding long lines and crowds. Secure your valuables, your documents, your medicines, your first aid kit. Keep a photographic record of your valuables. Charge your phone, get more credit. Plan where to safely park your car. Preparation now makes sense. A message from Rotary Central, planning ahead for disasters since 1997. Rotary, all the good you imagine.
Healthcare Pharmacy, caring about your health for the past 25 years. Radio Cayman's premier health show.
Alzheimer's and dementia, are they the same disorder?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Is heard on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor, where they care about your health. Transfer and refill your prescription online. Visit healthcarepharmacy.ky or call 947-8900. Healthcare Pharmacy now with a new and second location in Governor's Square. The new Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor's Square is open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Healthcare Pharmacy, where they care about your health.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report brought to you by CG Britcay, where people come first.
Good morning, everyone. Hello? Hello? Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Okay, I see we have just about everyone, and of course Tom drops off, as per usual. Let's just wait a minute here. He always comes right back, and we're almost ready, and... oh, whoever's dog that is, please go on mute. Why won't it let me share my screen? Okay, looks like we're ready to start.
We're like a video conference with no technical issues. CG Britcay. Good like that.
Good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 79 degrees. Relative humidity is 86%. The barometric pressure is 29.96 inches and rising. The winds are calm. Overnight low temperature was 77 degrees. Synopsis indicate moderate northeasterly winds and seas will continue across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours. The forecast for today and tonight calling for partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers, and temperatures will rise to the upper 80s and will fall to the mid-70s tonight. Winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. Low tide will be this morning at 9:54, high tide this afternoon at 4:23, and a low tide again tonight at 10:59. The sun will set this evening at 5:45 and will rise tomorrow morning at 6:43. And the outlook is calling for fresh easterly winds and rough seas from tomorrow morning, strong breeze from Friday morning as a high-pressure system builds over the eastern United States. A marine advisory is expected to be issued for Friday morning. That's the very latest on your weather report.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report brought to you by CG Britcay,
where people come first.
Head east on Cove Road. Sharp left on Church Street. Sharper left. No, your other left. Did I say left? Nope, you missed it. Okay, I'm lost.
With money-saving bundling options for home and motor, we're like a GPS that doesn't steer you wrong. CG Brit-K. Good like that.
Let's stop and ask for directions.
The public is advised that in relation to the air shows this weekend, restrictions are in place for all small unmanned aircraft, including drones. In Grand Cayman, drones and small unmanned aircraft are prohibited within 3 nautical miles of the air show and offshore at 7 Mile Public Beach from surface to 8,000 feet above mean sea level and prohibited within 3 nautical miles of the Charles Kirkconnell Airport in the BRAC. This restriction applies to both approved and recreational drone operators. The restrictions are in place for this Friday and Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Grand Cayman and this Sunday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the BRAC Air Show.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Good morning. Let's take a look at what's happening on our roads. A lot of patience need this morning if you're coming from the east, as traffic is extremely busy. Busy traffic coming off of Rex Creighton Boulevard and Shamrock Road and Linford Pearson Highway. Also on Crew Road heading to Georgetown, traffic is busy. Eastbound traffic on Crew Road is moving on moderately. As we look to Godfrey Nixon Way and Eastern Avenue, traffic is moderate and traffic flowing at a good pace on Shedman Road. Light to moderate traffic flow on Owen Roberts Drive and the usual traffic flow heading to Georgetown on Walker's Road. Coming off of Bobby Thompson Way, steady traffic and busy traffic coming off of Agnes Way. On the West Bay Road, traffic is moderate in both directions as well as coming from the West Bay four-way stop. And as we look to the Esterly Tibbetts Highway, traffic is steady coming off of there, heading towards the Butterfield Roundabout and continuing on to North Sound Road. That's what's happening on your roads. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12 o'clock. We'll give you another traffic report.
When you're craving something big, something tasty that gives you that lip-smacking satisfaction, something that hits the spot, there is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
It's pretty tasty.
Filling and full of flavor. Try our new sweet onion steak teriyaki with a twist. Or the classic chicken teriyaki. Top it with green pepper, onions, cheese, and that sweet onion teriyaki sauce, all piled on your favorite artisanal bread. Satisfy that craving with a footlong from Subway.
Fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty.
Let's make it a meal with a drink, chips, and cookies. There is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you. From cookware to stereos, from power tools to plumbing supplies. Yeah, we got the best goods with the best price and a service to make you smile. At Kirk's Home Center, we got a great deal in store for you.
Attention farmers, in the event of a storm, the DOA reminds you to take precautions with identifying and safeguarding livestock. Cattle and horses should be loose in pastures that are not prone to flooding. Other domestic livestock, such as pigs, goats, and chickens, should be kept safe in their pens and cages above flood level. Livestock aged 2 months or less should be secured with their mother in a pen or kept loose with their mother in a safe and sheltered area. For livestock emergencies, call DOA Veterinary Services on 916-2218 in Grand Cayman or 925-5765 Cayman Brac or email ci.agriculturevs@gov.ky.
For the record,
Record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the Record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Before I reintroduce my guest in the studio with me this morning, just want to give a happy birthday shout out and birthday wishes going to Samantha. They're coming from your mother, Samantha Bryan. They're coming from your mother, your dad, Samuel Bryan, brother McElroy, and stepmother Lisa, as well as your sister. So, Miss Samantha Bryan, happy birthday to you today. So in the studio we have with us again talking about the National Identification Program and the Register Bill, I think it's called.
The Identification Register Bill, yes.
Identification Register Bill. Conversations taking place with Mr. Charles Brown, who's the Acting Deputy Chief Officer in the Ministry of Innovation, Mr. Ian Tibbetts, the Director of the E-Government Unit, Mr. Trevor Gibbs, who's the Senior Policy Advisor in the Ministry of Innovation, Mr. Sean Hewell, who's also a Policy Advisor in the Ministry of Innovation. And the phone lines will be open at some point. They're prepared to take calls, to take questions or suggestions as well. When we do open the phone lines, we are going to ask you to please be as brief as possible. Meanwhile, if you have questions or observations, please feel free to send them in to us. You can email them to fortherecord at candw.ky or WhatsApp us 925-3261. Mr. Brown, back over to you.
Thank you, OC. So we were mentioning that the bills really allow a new paradigm to exist, to operate digitally. And it's a big change from the paper-based format. We talk about being in a modern age where we get things by email or we operate by phone, but really we just print out a lot of information and resubmit it. So what we're talking about today is the ability to do things completely digitally. And that's what the Register Bill is really structuring.
Okay.
It's new technology. If you remember, when's the last time that you've heard of people buying a camera just for the sake of a camera? Right? These SLR cameras, we all used to buy them and take pictures with them, and you had your phone and you had your camera. But now technology is so advanced that you have both being conflated together. There's a high-tech phone with a high-tech camera in it. And just for convenience reasons, just so you don't have one thing in both hands, people just revert to their phone, typically, to take pictures. And there's still a place for that type of camera, just like there'll be a place for operating in person with the government. It's just that we have to build a new system to accommodate all of the efficiencies that we are talking about, because we want the modern age and the speed and the time and the accuracy that avails.
Sure.
So I'll lay out just in summary the Register Bill, and then we will open up the phone lines after that.
Okay, and at the same time, in laying that out, if you can explain to those persons who are still questioning the need for two bills.
Sure. Okay. So the card bill has a variety of elements, complexities, specific things for the card, and we understand the card as a flat card because we have ID cards now. But there's digital features, there's digital signing capabilities that you will have right out of the bat with the card. So if you got the card, you have the ability to sign and create a qualified digital signature. So that allows you to submit a document to the government, to anybody, to anywhere, any financial institution, with a signature that proves that you signed it. And if both of us sign it, I could ensure that you sign the same version that I signed.
Okay.
So there's a variety of complexities that happen with the card, and that's why it is its own bill. But before the break, we were talking about the register. There is the need for you to be in the register before you get the card, because what's on the card is a subset of what's in the register. So there's information that there's optional in the register. If you choose to fill your telephone number, for instance, you can put that on. In the card, you have what we call a QR code. I mean, you've seen that technology. Many people are used to that technology. It's just an image that has it takes you to a personalized website. You can take your information in the register and toggle on what you want to share that way, or toggle off what you want to don't want to share that way. As I had mentioned recently, I was in a little fender bender, and the police had to share my driver's license with an individual, and I had to get a picture of their driver's license, and the police officer had to cover up my address when they took the picture and cover up their address when I took their picture, because to share the address was oversharing. So here is a new way to have the minimum amount of information printed on the card, but then have the ability to share key information that you want to share digitally. And that's at level 1. But in the register captures the basic information on you that's in the register and allows you to prove that information. That's the purposes of the register. It allows you to prove certain facts about yourself, but it also establishes for the first time a joined-up government, the ability for one entity that has a set of processes to capture your information where you are without you actually being there. So you could say, here is where I live. This is a DVDL. You could be at your home and say, no, this is where I live. Access this information on the register, because now I maintain my information with the government in this one place, in this central place, and then you can send that information out as needed to avail yourself of all the services across government. So 2 main purposes: allowing you to prove who you are, and then to share in a joined-up government and to participate in a joined-up government. And that has its own complexities, and therefore it has its own bill. It stands as its own bill. I would like Mr. Gibbs to just give us a brief overview of what is in the register in terms of the data. We're talking minimal data on a person.
Sure. Trevor?
So, OC, the information that's going to be that would be in the register for persons who choose to be entered in the register and to get themselves a card. We really can't overstate how minimal this information is. It is the basic information that would be required to identify any individual. That information is information that is held in government, in several places in the government, that you probably shared in the private sector quite a few times. Right. And you'll recognize that when I start to go down this list. So the information under identity facts is your first, middle, and surname, your date of birth, your nationality, your sex, and your current immigration status. In addition to that would be the identification code, which is a code that was just associated with the individual and will persist with you throughout your life.
Okay.
And that information, as you can sort of tell, is information that is really held in many places and used quite often, and that you share quite regularly. The additional information that could be on the register, if you so choose to have it there, that information includes your place of birth, any delegated authorities that you have. So if you do want or need somebody to act on your behalf, because the card is really for everyone in this country, and there are persons who don't have the ability to act on their own behalf in some cases. So if you have delegated authority, that would be included on the register, if you so choose. Certain external characteristics like height and eye color, which is on your driver's license. Photograph, principal contact information, emergency contact information, and any other residential addresses that you may want to include on the register.
And those are optional.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. So really minimalistic data, unless you choose to sort of expand your data set on the register, that's totally optional. But even those things are utilized just for things like you'd have your address on there if you wanted to start availing of ease when you're doing KYC type things. But those things are optional. And the importance of a database in this instance for identification. Also, I know that people get a little bit uncomfortable sometimes when you use the word database. Maybe not thinking about the fact that, again, your information, the information that is included, the information that I was talking about before under identity facts, your name, your date of birth, all that's on your birth certificate, and that's shared quite regularly. But the importance of having a database with the basic identity information, particularly in our geographic location. I know we harken back to Ivan quite often when we make references to major disasters, but heaven forbid that ever happens again. But we are in Hurricane Alley, and a lot of people, unfortunately, lost all of their modes of identification during that time. If you were in the register, you'd be able to access that information and identify yourself digitally with the app or with the card very easily anywhere. We know of examples today that are still going on, particularly in Ukraine. There's a war that's still raging on there, and Ukrainians, many of them have fled the country, and the country is quite battered. Government obviously is focused on fighting, but Ukrainians are still able to access basic government services even outside of the Ukraine because they have a very robust e-government services and identification system. So these are the kinds of things that we think are important for people to understand. The information in the register is quite basic. It's information that's already in government and in many places in the private sector. This is just giving you, as Deputy Chief Officer Brown mentioned, giving you the ability to share what you need when you need it. You have the control. It is your identity. It is your information.
Okay.
And we'll see, as the Minister mentioned, this was one of the areas where there was going to be a committee stage amendment, and that's about enabling trust. As the public is aware, we're building a system. If the bills are passed, there'll be a system that will be built. We would imagine that we wouldn't be releasing cards and having persons access the register until July of next year, July 1st of next year. But it is important to establish trust, because people, some citizens have concerns about the data, the minimal data set that Trevor just mentioned, Mr. Gibbs just mentioned, growing, in that government could add more things to it in the future. So we understand, gentlemen, that you all have best intentions, but if another government had poor intentions, you could just add to this list, and there is a reg-making provision attached to this list that would allow it to grow. We've always looked at it from our perspective in line with the purposes of this bill, to add things like that an account needs to be able to go dormant, or that we need to be able to determine the residential status of a person, essentially that you become a non-resident, things like that, practical things. But to establish trust, we will have a committee stage amendment to close that door, so that the reg-making provision will cease to exist, and the minimum data set that Mr. Gibbs just read would exist as that minimum.
Okay. And any additional would require going back to Parliament.
Correct.
Good.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, sir.
Okay. No, I'm reminded that we need to take a commercial break now, folks. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop in to any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice-cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, K-Man.
At Doctor's Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctor's Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
JN Money, money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN Money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash, or use your money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank? Yeah. Pay your bills quick? Yeah. Low fees, you know what it? Yeah. JN Money, we are pick? Yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank? Yeah. Pay your bills quick? Yeah. Low fees, you know what it? Yeah. JN Money, we are pick? Yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
After more than 20 years, the Cayman Islands Air Show is back. It's all eyes to the sky on Saturday, December 3rd for a thrilling air show on 7 Mile Public Beach. Witness amazing aerobatic maneuvers as world-class pilots put on a stunning show. Then see the planes and meet the aviators at the Island Air Hangar. Parking permitted at designated sites with free shuttle buses to the events. For all the details and event lineup, visit CaymanAirShow.com. The Cayman Islands Air Show returns Saturday, December 3rd, 10 a.m. at 7 Mile Public Beach and 3 p.m. at the Island Air Hangar.
System 1 loaded. 1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're discussing the National Identification Program. We have a team from the Ministry of Innovation in the studio with us. Before I hand the mic back over to them, the staff at the DCI, that's the Department of Commerce and Industry, I believe, the family there, they're sending birthday greetings to Simone Morgan. And this listener has also shared with us, they say that they believe that the ID system is good because if a young person does not reach the age where they can acquire a driver's license or be able to vote, that young person normally would have to walk with their passport, which is inconvenient and not conducive in this day and age. Says if they are worrying about being tracked, the cell phone does that. If you have on Siri, it records your conversations, and they believe that young people would certainly welcome the proposed new identification system. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much, OC. And we definitely are the Ministry of Innovation and Inclusion, not the Ministry of Surveillance. So we're about bringing the technology that will allow the new era to lay and be established, and we're very excited about that. Also, I just wanted to acknowledge in the last time that we were on, a caller had mentioned the inclusion of suffix, and we are working through that with legal drafting as well as for consideration in that basic list. But we really believe that consultation, because the entry into the register is optional, that consultation will be better when people can see it.
Mhm,
Right
mhm,
now, we're
mhm.
talking about the ability to, and we've been very, very clear with the public that we don't want to load data. We don't want to create a system, even if it's voluntary. We could do this right now. But we want to have the checks and balances. We want to have the care that is laid out in the law for how you have to care for this data, the security that's established that the registrar has to ensure is around the data. All of these things are what's built out in the register bill, and gives the public the assurance that when we do this, we do it right. So in for any persons that are concerned about their data and how their data will be stored and used, they can sit back and they can let the early adopters avail themselves of digital signatures and operating digitally. And when they are ready, then they can have demonstrations with real live data and talk to friends and family of how this works. And at their time and convenience opt into the register.
Mhm.
I was wondering if Ian could give us a little update on the security side of how data is protected and kept.
Yeah, and I think, it was just listening, Charles, even to this, it's reminded me. So we talk about we identified that national ID has been in discussion for over 35 years now. Well, I've personally been involved from my joining the civil service in December 2014, and it was identified before that national ID was something that was needed, and and that it was set out as one of the things that the Director of e-Government or the e-Government program would deliver.
Mhm.
However, it's been a couple of years now, right? But there were reasons for that. Some of those reasons consisted of we needed to focus on security. We needed to focus on the legal basis of protecting privacy. So, in that time, not that I was directly involved in that, but the Data Protection Act came into force, etc., which provides for the privacy. We did considerable work in the civil service around security. We've both in terms of systems, people, processes, structures, and so I'll set that as kind of the backdrop to say that this isn't something that has happened in the absence of consideration about privacy and security in particular. Very much so, it's been at the forefront. And Charles asked me to speak briefly on security overall. So we look at security for this from the design concept, and how do you secure it at the that design, as opposed to having an object or having something and you're trying to retrofit security onto it.
Yes.
No, let's start with security in mind and build it out that way. So from that perspective, we have looked at systems that would have encryption in its and security from that perspective, just in its base state of being stored. Encryption and how and security in how you access it whenever it's being accessed, when the data is being passed from one system to the next, or between a user and a system.
Mm-hmm.
The data is encrypted protection, but then you put layers around it. I think I used the analogy the other day of when you're securing something, if the more windows and doors you have into a room, the more you have to worry about different ways of securing. If you can reduce the numbers of ways that you access something, then you can focus your security and your protections on those points. So we've done that. We have the bill talks about interoperability. That's a key part of that. Is we've implemented an interoperability solution designed specifically to secure the exchange of information. We have locked down the ways that you can get to it. And we have implemented systems that will automatically log every time that the data is accessed, etc., timestamp it, and you can go back, and it's done in such a way that creates an immutable record that you can prove when that the data was accessed and what the valid response was at the time. So you can count on it, in that regard. But then that's deep down in the system. above and beyond that, you have all your traditional layers of security, whether that's in, if I get a little bit technical, segregation of systems and roles, and then you have different, whether it be firewalls and web application firewalls and, different restrictions. All of these things are layered on top. So that's from a technology perspective. But then from a process perspective, it is looking at how we implement things, that you, at the level that you use for your passport, in terms of the processes to make sure that you're issuing the card to the right person, and that you're validating the data. Because the idea here is that this system and the card needs to have the level of trust and confidence that you have in a passport.
And what I'd just add to that is that penetration testing, the third-party verification that what we've built is sound, is very important. And we've already conducted some testing, and we will continue to conduct testing to ensure that all of our infrastructure is top-notch and grade A.
Okay. Can you talk about the interaction and the consultations that you've had with the Office of the Ombudsman in terms of data protection, and have they had a look at the legislation as it's being developed and had the ability to have input into that as well? Can you speak to that?
So one of our major aims of discussing with focus groups was to get that type of feedback. And the Office of the Ombudsman was included in that initial feedback when we had a draft bill and we were sharing that with those entities.
Mm-hmm.
We had discussions with Office of the Ombudsman. We had a tech group specifically. We talked to SEMA, we talked to banks, and people are saying, well, why talk to these institutions? Well, if you're building a card that's going to change potentially how KYC could be proven, the concept of being able to verify an address once and share it rather than have to take the piece of utility bill to multiple entities. We want to ensure that we are achieving something here, so that those that are currently unbanked would have a greater chance of becoming banked, that the card can work. So yes, we have had a round of consultations with a variety of entities, both in government and outside of government. We've taken on their feedback, and you see what you see here. So for instance, there were concerns about in Section 30, there's the ability for an entity to do an investigation, a regulatory body to do an investigation on somebody. And there's a transparency piece built into this law that every time somebody accesses your data, it is logged so that you, the individual, can see it. This is groundbreaking. We don't have anything like this. So when you log in, you will see who's accessed your data. Obviously, you should have been in those places that you recall. Yes, I was at DVDL, or I was at the hospital, or I was at this place, and I gave them the ability to access my information because I was availing of their services this way. But if you see something that why is that there? You have a query. And there's also the requirement for any entity that is accessing your information to log it on their side as well, so they have a corresponding log. But as I was mentioning, there's investigations that you wouldn't want to tip off the person that you're investigating. Right? So they have a carve out under Section 30 that if an enforcement body is doing an investigation on a person, they can do it without that log showing up in a way that you can access it. However, data protection has a very similar provision, and that exists today. So Section 30, as it stands,
mirrors
nearly word for word from the Data Protection Act. But we took it a step further and said, well, whenever those entities are accessing your data, it will also be logged. So you mightn't be able to see it because you're under investigation, but an oversight body that can hold the investigator to account, they can access that information. They can pull it. So it is not that even though an investigation is occurring, nothing is being logged on the back end of what they're looking at. And I want to be very clear that it is this basic information in the register that we're talking about. We're not talking about every other piece of information. It's just this basic information in the register. So there's a high degree of transparency that is built into this act to give people the ability to have control of their identity and what is happening with their identity.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, I want to ask you about international best standards. And while, for instance, I recall when we were introducing the FOI legislation, Freedom of Information legislation here in the Cayman Islands. Of course, there are international bodies who advocate for this. We had them look at our legislation, opine, about it as well. And, at the end of the day, we got ringing endorsements from those entities. Now, this may be slightly different because there's so many components to it. Now, we heard Mr. Gibbs mention Ukraine and the situation in Ukraine. We know also that you have looked at systems in Estonia, as well. And my question would be, are there international best practices when it comes to the creation of a national identification system as well? So we're going to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vamt Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vamt Motors, Walkers Road.
So much happening so fast, too much. It is hard for me to follow my healthcare instructions. The private counseling with West Bay Pharmacy literally saved my life.
At West Bay Pharmacy, we know how complex medications can be. Our pharmacists are delighted to offer you personalized one-on-one healthcare counseling, free medication review, therapeutic callbacks, and we will liaise with your physician to ensure you receive the best in quality medical care.
Quality of life has a whole new meaning with the right pharmacy to support you. Thank you, West Bay Pharmacy.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient quality care is just around the corner. Now you can WhatsApp your West Bay Pharmacy prescriptions to 516-0777.
Can you imagine your home completely organized? At Brand Source Custom Closets, we can. We specialize in designing and building custom closets and storage units for any room in your home, including the garage. With tailored designs and custom LED lighting solutions to fit your lifestyle and budget. Our custom closets expert is committed to enhancing the value of your home with a solution that is uniquely yours. Visit our showroom or call 623-6774 to schedule a no-obligation appointment with our design expert. Brand Source Custom Closets, 209 Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We have a team from the Ministry of Innovation in the studio this morning, again talking about the National Identification Program. Over to you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, OC. And just want to get an opportunity to try and speed through the summary of the clauses in the bills and why they're arranged that way, and then we can jump back to the question that was posed earlier. So under Section 3 of the bill, it talks about who can get into the register, and this is for all residents. So Caymanians, permanent residents, anybody on a work permit that anybody that's here that has a right to reside here would be allowed into the register and to take part with the register. And under section subclause 2, there's a shall. because when we were crafting the bill first, we knew that the uptake of the card, there was a lot of desire for it. This was really to preload the register so that that part could be much more efficient. But the register will be optional. That's where one of the committee stage amendments will occur, that it will be a may instead of a shall, so that citizens can opt in when they want, and when they're good and ready. Similarly, under subclause 5, it says that the register shall make an entry into the registrar shall make an entry into the register in respect to the person. That would be changed to most likely, and a person may apply to the registrar for inclusion in the register. Under the powers of the registrar, as would be expected, we have a system. It's about a joined up government. There has to be specifications of how data is shared between entities. You can't have one entity saying, I'll send you the information this way, and another entity saying, I'll email it to you when you want. It's not a digital setup. So this is a infrastructural layer, and the registrar has control over that layer to set up the technology piece. Therefore, he can dictate to other directors how the information needs to be shared, and that's to be expected. But there is a provision there that was drafted initially to keep the register up to international standards, and that is being misinterpreted as the ability to meet an international obligation, and it's not necessary, so we're going to strike that completely. So this is clause 14, subclause clause H.
How does it read now?
Facilitate international obligations relating to the register. We're just going to strike that completely, because we have no need to meet any international obligations. The CI government is in complete control of this register and the parameters and design of the register. And as mentioned on previous shows, the data will reside in the Cayman Islands, and so there's no concern for data going anywhere, and that we have any obligations to meet. Similarly, last point that I'd like to raise is that under Section 29, there is the ability for a public authority to interact with the register. As we had mentioned earlier, one of the purposes of the register was to allow a person to avail of any other enactment, so they can satisfy another enactment through the use of the register. So this is the section that allows government to do that. There's a previous section about consent under 28, where you're in the private sector and you choose as a person to give your information. But under 29, this is when you're coming to government to get services. Because the register will be optional, we don't want anybody to be denied service just because they're not in the register. Right. So there's going to be a specific provision put in here that allows you to interact in person, just like it would be expected, that you will not be denied service in any way. But the register obviously needs to, and the interoperability solution is about the new paradigm that will be accommodated through this particular section. So those are the major elements of the committee stage changes that we'll be discussing in the House. And I want to now address your previous question about international standards. So, Ian, I don't know if you want to take that.
So to the point of looking at and other bodies or other places that have experience. So when I when I started early late in 2015, we sought to understand what that environment was like, and we actually brought a team from Estonia. In Estonia, there's an entity called the E-Governance Academy. It's a non-profit, non-governmental institution that assists countries around the world with basically implementing e-governance. Okay. And we brought a team down from Estonia, and we had pretty much a week of meetings. We included, and these were open to the public, and some, and we had a day or two that was open to the public.
I had someone on my show as well. And
that attended these, and they presented, explained what's done, the benefits, the pros, the cons, in their case, and that was one element. We obviously did a lot of research, and these gentlemen have been part of that as well, and me and my team have, on existing standards. And if you think about whether guidance that the European Union has a big program on national IDs and the electronic IDs in particular, and, you hear about EIDAS, etc. Then there are other entities that have published documents, and for us, it's ensuring not that necessarily for the ID card or the register that they're internationally compliant, but that we understand what other places have done, what the pros and cons are, and what would be right for the Cayman Islands, and try to work from that point. Now, there are elements like the signature, for example. Those things, for it to really achieve the benefit, need to have international recognition, etc. And in the case of the digital signature, that's precisely why we've gone with a signature method that is relying on PKI technology, which is quite internationally recognized. And we've utilized the card and in such a way that it is considered a secure signature creation device, so that the signature can be relied on. We've utilized a certificate authority that would be recognized internationally. So you have all of those elements. But something else that I a lot of people find interesting is your passport today is a biometric passport, right? And a large part of that is also talking about the electronic capabilities. A very similar chip to what's in the ID card exists in your passport. You just don't see it.
Right.
And there are free mobile apps today that you can get, that you can use to read your passport, read the electronic data from your passport. And I've demonstrated many, many times that the very same free mobile app, one that I've used in particular, that reads your passport, you can use it to read your card as well. Right, so it just shows that it is standards based. It is, it conforms to those practices. The design of the card, the card is not, as in its current state, it is not an international travel document.
Right.
But in the event that we wanted to go that route, what we have done is we have followed the ICAO visual design. So if the Cayman Islands government and Cayman Islands decided at a later point and an ID card for international travel document was something that was was a necessity, then there is a possibility. That does have significant cost implications and significant additional requirements, but the visual design, it gives it a formal standards-based approach. So
excellent. We have about you're not ready for headline news yet, Miss Susan? Can I come to you now? Meanwhile, one of our listeners has sent. The person says, ask the question whether or not the voter's ID be verification of your address. As it stands now, I believe it is.
So,
right, yeah?
Under Clause 10 in the Register Bill, we've allowed a system of assurance to be flushed out in regulation, and we're very excited about this particular section, in that a person could give us their address. Again, this is the part that they enter. You recall that address was on the related fact side, so it's on the may side. But if you put your address into the register, I don't know that that's exactly where you live, right? So I have a very low assurance, OC, that you live there. However, if you prove that you live there via a utility bill, that low level of assurance could be elevated to a verified address. And obviously, because it's a digital system, it can be curtailed to be verified for whatever period of time suits that person's profile. So we're talking about know your customer, KYC, and that can be adjusted. So if you're in a high cash flow business and you're considered high risk from the financial industry, you may be forced to renew that verified status more frequently. But if you're a retired civil servant that has one stream of income from a pension, you may have a low risk profile and therefore have to verify that address less and less.
Right.
But yes, it's a system of assurance is huge in that regard. And in a mature state, instead of taking the piece of paper to the registrar and saying, I live here, we could talk about a digital paradigm where the person gives the registrar the permission to say, verify my address with a utility, and they could do so. There's situations where a spouse lives with the person. And if my wife needed to be verified in that way for KYC, I could receive a notification saying, well, your name is on the utility, but confirm that your wife lives with you. And you could just press a button and verify it that way.
Okay, and based on my knowledge, as far as the election law is concerned, the address is one of the requirements as well, because where you live will determine, where you vote as well. So that's extremely important. So the elections law requires that an address. That is why on the voters register, the address is there, and what has been transported from the voters register onto your card basically, is the same as well. Folks, top of the hour. Headline news. When we return, the conversation will continue. I think we're getting pretty close to that time where we can open up the phone lines as well. So please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Cayman Islands Intellectual Property Office highlights Cayman's ability to protect artistic creations and brand owners at an invitation-only event in Miami. Discussions at the International Trademark Association leadership meeting centered around the use of copyrights, trademarks, and current legislation for North America and the region. The first drug to slow the destruction of the brain in Alzheimer's has been heralded as momentous. The research breakthrough ends decades of failures and shows a new era of drugs to treat Alzheimer's, the most common form of dementia, is possible. Yet the medicine has only a small effect and its impact on people's daily lives is debated. And the drug works in the early stages of the disease, so most would miss out without a revolution in spotting it. And China's former leader, Jiang Zemin, who came to power after Tiananmen Square protests, has died at the age of 96. Zhang presided over a time when China opened up on a vast scale and saw high-speed growth. His death comes as China sees some of its most serious protests since Tiananmen, with many demonstrating against COVID restrictions. A Chinese Communist Party statement said he died of leukemia and multiple organ failure. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We have a team from the Ministry of Innovation. We're talking about a national identification program. One of our listeners has written and said, good morning, a national ID card will be very convenient and will make conducting business easier. Having a national ID is another step for us to keep up with the rest of the world.
And I just want to give people a resource that they can reference. And we've built a website that has the bills, has all of our shows, that any person that wants to learn more about the bills and its content, they can go and visit. And it's imagine.egov.ky. And all of the information is there. Feedback forms are there. That's how you can relay feedback to us. So please go and visit that site as well. OC, just before we jump on to any other calls or any other topics, I just want to circle back to what we were mentioning with the verified address. And I just want to hammer home that the register doesn't have any financial information in it. So when I talked about a person's risk profile, I'm referring to everything being in the control of that individual. So all the registrar would be in charge of is verifying the address when that person says, please verify my address. So the profile to say whether they're high risk or not is completely between them and the organization that they are trying to establish the verification for.
Okay. Now, being on the cutting edge of technology and ensuring that if we're not ahead, at least we're in lockstep with what's happening internationally. Can you speak to the boundaries, or if there are any boundaries in terms of this system, you know, how much it could encompass for the inhabitants of the Cayman Islands? I know that people continue to talk about passports and everything, but what they fail to realize is that we here in the Cayman Islands have absolutely no control over the issue of our passports, be it a passport that says British Overseas Territories, Cayman Islands, or be it a British passport. Because our nationality is controlled under the British Nationality Act, and because the only nationality that we have is our connection with the UK, and we'll get into the political side of it, but if you want all of that to change so that you have control over your travel documents and the issue of your passports, then we have to go, you know, several steps forward before we can obtain that. So those who talk about, you know, passports at this stage, I just want to remind you that we here in the Cayman Islands have absolutely no control over what is required when it comes to the issue of a passport. They belong to the British government.
I would like to just jump in and say that in operating in the physical form, that you have to be present, means that when you are overseas, you could be a Caymanian living overseas. You'll hear people say, well, when I get back, I'll apply for this. So you imagine how the paradigm, let's dream a little bit. You imagine how the paradigm could change, that you could be a Caymanian living overseas. It doesn't matter for how long. It could be a student, could be somebody that's out of the islands for 10, 20 years. That they could conduct business with the government from wherever they are. That's the power that this has. We could be talking about declaring what you need to pay for customs while you're sitting in the waiting area in Miami Airport, filling out the customs declaration form, pre-filling out the immigration form. Some of that is available now, but I'm talking about being able to come home and just tap that I'm home with the card, potentially tap that I've paid for my customs declaration, pay for it possibly by credit card while getting here. Being able to change how we do business because I can prove certain things about myself without being physically in front of the person. It's a paradigm shift.
And I think if I can chime in,
Sure.
Mr. O.C., something we've learned through Ian and Charles's visit to Estonia is that this is a quality of life enhancement ultimately. Folks in Estonia say that as a result of the system, they have more time with their children, or they have more time to go outside. So while there is an overemphasis perhaps on the technological solution in the public sphere currently, ultimately this is about, the enhancement of your quality of life through efficiencies that are present throughout the world today. So it's very much about Cayman getting to that next step for its citizens and for its citizens' quality of life.
And when we talk about our roads and the amount of vehicles on the road, how many people don't, or how many people know that they get into their vehicles simply because they have to go and transact business, out there rather than
all the
being
moving
able
around.
to do it? Yes.
But Sean brought up the Estonia visit. I was surprised that when we parked in the public area to park, it was street parking. I said, well, aren't you going to pay? They're like, no, it will just be added to my telephone bill. So they have a system of knowing that the car is linked to the profile. It knows that, hey, I am here in a parking space, and that meter now is ticking. until the person leaves, and they don't have to pay at that time. It's just added to the bill. And if any police officer checked that car at that particular time, they also could check to know that it is being paid. We're talking about just an advanced system that's sometimes hard to imagine, but it's all about convenience.
Yeah. Okay, we have a caller. We're going to take that caller at some point in time. I want you to talk about those persons who have concerns about the fact that Big Brother may be watching you as well. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. For the Record.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, and good morning to your guests.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
sir.
I would just like to ask a few questions.
Sure. Go right ahead.
When does a registered voter lose the right to vote?
That would be under the elections law, I would presume. You have to be a Caymanian, and as long as you're a Caymanian, you have the right to vote.
Yes. The reason why I'm asking you that is because when you first started this morning, you talked about one of the pitfalls is that the elections card, the registration card, has no expiry date. Well, why should it have a expiry date? When you are the only time that I know that you're not allowed to vote is when you are incarcerated in prison.
Or if you lose those qualities that entitle you to be a voter in the first place, like
Yes,
if you're no longer Caymanian and things of that nature. Yeah,
but that has nothing to do with an expiration date.
And that comment, sir, is squarely positioned for the financial transactions piece. So we have heard of cases where persons have not been allowed to use the elections card as a suitable form of identification in relation to a financial transaction, not necessarily an election or a voting
No, that's
parameter.
the reason why I'm asking you that, because a registration card should not have an expiration date, because you as long as you have all of the requirements to vote, you can vote. You're allowed to vote until you die.
Caller, I'm going to let one of our panelists here speak to some of the concerns that SEMA has, or the feedback that they have received from SEMA in relation.
I'm not talking about SEMA.
No, in relation to the in relation to the address, the need for an address to be on a identification card for financial purposes.
That might be so, but
okay.
But what does that expiration date has to do with a registration card that is not accepted as an identification?
So
it seems to me that is not a valid point.
So
Doc, I'm going to need you to add a little clarity to it, to your question.
The clarity to it is once I have a registration, once I have a card, and I'm allowed to vote, why should it have a date when it expires?
Okay, I'm not sure that these gentlemen can answer that here, because
that's what they said this morning. They say that one of the reasons why the election card is not accepted because it has no expiration date.
Let me see if I can help.
Go ahead.
So bear in mind, when you show up at a polling station with your voter ID, are you blindly allowed, therefore, to go and vote? No. It's compared to the register. So if you have an ID card and you have let's say lost your Caymanian immigration status and you're no longer eligible to vote, they still compare your identity to the information on the register, so that the ID card is simply a tool specific for that purpose to help you provide you some information around which polling station, also to allow them to link
and
you
it has a photograph
quickly to the register.
And that's why you
has nothing to do with an expiration date.
Agreed. And however, I think the point is that because it doesn't have one of the contributing factors is the fact that it doesn't have an expiration date.
It shouldn't have an expiration date.
I agree with that. I agree with you. For the voting purposes, it does not need to have an expiration date, but the absence of an expiration date strictly from an identity perspective
precludes you from using it. Yeah.
Means that you don't. There's not ever a need to revalidate the information. So if the information, something has changed on it, the only thing you know is that this information was accurate whatever date this was issued. It hasn't, and that could be 40 years ago. But yeah, obviously I'm exaggerating here.
So why should have what does an expiration date have to do with that, with some change in the future of information?
In relation to the identity piece, expiration dates are useful in that it forces people to capture change. So
useful, but there's no need for it on the date once you have the right to vote.
Yes, so
your right to vote continues until you die.
Yeah, but Doc, we understand that, but we're really not into the voting part of it. I can explain to you that when voter identification cards were first issued, they had a lifespan of 4 years, which was the election cycle every 4 years. It was determined then that it meant that you would have to go and reissue, because we were dealing with basically hard copies, not a system whereby you could go in there and update information and change that expiry date. It was a hard copy of a card that was issued. We realized that at that time, I think we had something like about 18,000 registered voters, that we would have to turn around and issue, after 4 years, 18,000 voter identification cards again. So it was decided that at that point in time not to put an expiry date on it for that purpose. Now we have seen since then that has had negative repercussions for people, because some institutions are refusing to recognize it because it doesn't have an expiry date. Initially, it had a 4-year expiry date.
And that's just primarily...
What other country in the world that a voter's registration card has an expiry date?
I think what we're actually discussing is the limitations of a physical card, trying to retain the accuracy of a physical card, and that is why the digital features actually maintain the accuracy, and we reduce the information on a physical card down to the bare minimum, so that when the digital features are queried, you can get the accurate information at that time. So if you change address 10 times in 10 years, you don't need a new card, because there was an address printed on the old card. It is that the digital element of your address can be queried at any time and can be verified. And that's the new paradigm, that you issue a card once and can get the accurate information from it at any time.
Mm-hmm. So the other question I want to ask is is this card valid outside of the Cayman Islands as an identification piece?
It is a government issued identification card, so it is valid.
So is it valid for immigration purposes? Can anyone use it for immigration purposes and traveling?
We will continue to discuss with all government entities as to how this new paradigm could change some of those elements. But yes, as was mentioned earlier, right now to have a card be certified as a travel document requires certain other elements. But really, the new paradigm, if you have multiple nationalities, for instance, you have 2 passports, let's say, you're still the same individual. You're the same person. You just have 2 nationalities with 2 passport numbers.
Is this card valid without having a passport to enter a country?
No, sir. It is not an international travel document. That does not necessarily mean that we may not have the ability as the Cayman Islands itself
to say that
to accept it for different purposes.
Correct.
when you return.
Yes,
but it is not an international travel document, so it will not be recognized as an alternative to a passport in another country.
So mainly, Mainly, it's information gathered by the government here to facilitate their records of your whereabouts and what you do here.
No, sir. It's not certainly not the whereabouts piece for sure. It is a means of people proving who they are and the ability to have them to see who has accessed their information. It's a tool for them to prove their identity. We have a number of persons, particularly younger persons, under the age of 17. The only option you have in the Cayman Islands for an identity document is a passport as a Caymanian. And some people don't have passports because they don't have a need to travel, or they don't have the family support unit or other persons around them to assist them with getting it, or can even afford the cost of doing so,
or need to travel within the islands.
And so those persons are left without a document. They're not old enough to get a driver's license. They may not have the skill. Even if they were, they are also not eligible to vote yet because of age. And those persons, though, often need an identity document for a variety of things, starting with just traveling between our own 3 islands by air, because we share our international and domestic terminals. I believe is the primary reason why you have to have ID to travel, through those airports, but other purposes like taking an external proctored exam. Oftentimes you need a government issued photo ID. We have seen cases where persons have been scrambling for this. Those persons, oftentimes wanting to get a job, need some mechanism to prove their identity in a photo ID form. A birth certificate, the problem is you're limited to just a piece of paper with data on it, as opposed to a photo.
But we also need to just reinforce that when this says Caymanian on it, on that ID for a job purpose, HR purpose, you don't have to bring in your grandfather's birth certificate to prove that you are Caymanian. When this says Caymanian, it's coming directly from the immigration work department.
Okay, Doc. Final.
There's not such thing as a Caymanian, and this is what happens when you have not your people not identified in the Constitution that is the primary law of the land. But even the Constitution does not say who's a Caymanian, and that is the problem. And what we need to do, instead of having all this stuff about all this ID and all this IT, is to amend the Constitution to say who's Caymanian and who's not Caymanian.
Okay, Doc. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Folks, we've gone way beyond our commercial break. We do have a few callers on hold as well. We will take those other callers as soon as we return. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
West Bay, home to Barkas National Park, the touristy flair, a family community, a political powerhouse. From sports enthusiasts to car aficionados, affection for silver thatch rope. No matter how far you may venture, West Bay will always be where the heart is. Home will always be in West Bay. West Bay Pharmacy, caring for your home and your family. West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient, quality care is just around the corner.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay.
No one can stop me when I taste the
Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
Tune in every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. for Radio Cayman's Midday Newscast. Radio Cayman, the People's Station, your trusted official source for the latest news. The 12 p.m. news is proudly brought to you by Health City Cayman Islands. World-class healthcare within your reach.
As the community continues to take precautions from COVID-19, it is important to stay prepared for other disasters now that we're in the hurricane season. Here are some post-hurricane safety tips from the Department of Environmental Health. Did you know that you must discard fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, foods in canisters, dented, leaking, or rusting cans after they have come in contact with floodwater? For full guidance on post-hurricane safety tips, visit www.deh.gov.ky.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system for information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We're going straight to the phone lines. As we promised, we're discussing the National Identification Program in the Cayman Islands. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I first want to start off by saying thank you so much to the civil servants in the room for being committed to informing the people in respect to this topic of identification card. Much needed because the community seems to be uninformed about most of the details with it. But I want to see if I can get better clarity as to what Dr. Steve Matfield was saying, because I too am confused in respect to the outside of the ID problem, but the voter's ID issue, one that is continuing to be a problem. We just said that it's a government-issued ID. I also heard you say that it's a card that is used for identification, not for validation of whether you can vote or not, because you have to correspond that with the voters list. So if it's accepted as an ID, why can't an agency or an entity like a bank accept it for the same ID if the Cayman Islands government is doing so? Are we saying that the identification to the elections process is flawed?
No, sir. It's not the elections process that's being brought into question. It's really from a financial perspective. The guidance is to have an ID that has an expiry date on it, so that the cycle, let's just say it was issued for 5 years, it has a control mechanism built in that reduces risk. If it was lost and fell into the wrong hands after expiry, at the worst case scenario, that document is no longer valid. So they obviously support a concept where it has an expiry date that allows a more security because it's built in, and that's a completely separate discussion in relation to your ability to be a voter.
I'm going to ask Trevor to share something with our listening audience that he shared offline in relation to monetary authority.
Sure.
Trevor?
So the monetary authority, they've been fantastic in terms of availing themselves to us and making themselves available. We've met with them several occasions because we want to make sure that we get particularly the system of assurance around your address right, because this is going to be what we believe the key that will sort of unlock the ability for the everyday citizen to prove their identity for KYC purposes.
Right.
And to the minister's question, the guidance from SEMA that is provided to these financial institutions, banks, and we understand also the remittance services, the sending money overseas, is that the requirement is that the document that is used to identify the individual, that document has an expiry date for the reasons that Deputy Chief Officer Brown mentioned, that after a certain period of time, you are required to get a new document. You can update the document. There are built-in securities with that to make sure that the information is correct and the right person is using the document.
Okay, thanks for that. Minister?
So thank you so much for that. So that's the guidance from SEMA, which is our regulatory body for these entities, ones that we cannot do without anymore. You have to deal with a bank to live in this world today. So are we then saying that the elections ID processing is flawed? Because it is a government-issued ID. You just recognize that it's from the Cayman Islands government. It shows who you are as a person, and they have deemed that you can still be seen as the person regardless of whether you lost your right to vote or not. Doesn't matter. It's showing that the Cayman Islands government has identified that John Blow, with this picture on it, is that person. Now, if that's what the entities are trying to use in changing a check, for example, that John Blow is the person on this government-issued ID, I don't understand that the SEMA can say that. But if they have done so, what we have to recognize is that the ID process now has to change. And OCU rightfully recognize the cost associated with that. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either one or the other. I think that's what Dr. Steve McField is trying to say, and I'm trying to understand it as well. This is separate from the ID itself. Because if this is where we're going now, what we're doing now is examining the bigger picture. So is that what we're saying?
I think the piece that the elections officer has that the bank or any financial institution doesn't have is to actually cross-reference the ID, the flat ID, against the register, so that you have an elections register that says you live here, and they cross-reference you. So that's why I think there's a piece.
But the cross-reference is to the fact of whether you can vote or not as to whether you are the person. Because, for example, a status holder lost their status because they got divorced from a Caymanian. That doesn't mean the ID doesn't say rightfully that the person is the person. It just says that the cross-section of information that you're using is now saying you no longer have Cayman status. That's all it's doing. So the cross-section has nothing to do with the identification part.
Correct. Arguably.
So again, the ID is a government-issued ID that still accomplishes the identification part, which is what we're talking about, is to identify a person's name and that they are justifiably who they are on the card. So it still doesn't make sense to me.
I think one of the things, you have, a valid argument, obviously, in many cases. I think what we're talking about is for different purposes. So yes, and what you can rely on with a voter ID is that the information on the card was accurate at the time of issue. The challenge is, and I think this is where other entities are running in, is the information on the card still valid at a later point, because it does not have an expiry date, so there's no knowledge of it having been reaffirmed or reassured. During that time, the person's name could have changed. During that time, the person's address could have changed. Obviously, I don't think their date of birth is going to change. but so it is the party relying on the ID. So in this case, we're talking about banks or financial institutions needing to ensure that it is adequate for their purpose to verify that they're dealing with the correct identity of the person now, because that identity, they obviously have obligations to ensure other things, in the around their involvement.
And the point is that we really have to fight this battle when it comes to an expiry date on another front, not on this front, but it has to be fought on another front in terms of our financial services industry.
Fair enough. But allow me to just do one more challenge here in respect to this, and this is helping this discussion, right?
Sure.
We're asking for an identification card. Now, you're talking about data on the card because you're talking about different sets of information. One is name, and you had a justified point to say your name could have changed. Deed poll, marriage, all those other factors. So you have a point there. But when you change in a check, nobody needs to have your address for changing a check. You want to confirm that the name that's on that check is the name on the ID. That's what the identification, not sources of information for financial purposes. So there's no need for their address. There's no need for their date of birth. Now, the date of birth may help in correspondence to say John Blow's date of birth, but it's not like the check will say the date of birth of John Blow on the check. It just says the name. So we use, when we talk about banks and other agencies, are they using this card for information purposes or for identification purposes, which is two different matters, right? So
when you say, Minister, remember now, this card that is being developed, it's not being developed for the financial industry. It's being developed for the government and the people of the Cayman Islands, for their utility. The banks may be able to piggyback on it, and we may be able to satisfy some of the requirements that the financial institutions have now, but it's not being developed for them.
And I'm not suggesting. Forgive me, because I have separated the national ID issue from this voter ID issue. Yeah. I'm piggybacking on that. I have no issues with the national ID. I think the national ID will resolve some of these problems that we're talking about in respect to the voter's ID.
Yes, sir.
But the voter's ID, in my humble opinion, is probably one of the strongest IDs in the country's land, because that's the only one that says you are Caymanian.
Yep.
at this current moment. So I'm trying to justify, understand where the logic is that we cannot use a voter's ID, because identification, again, I say, is different from collection of information about a person for example, opening a bank account.
Yeah, you're preaching to the converted here, Minister. You're preaching to the converted.
So good. Okay, now that we agreed on that, tell me why is it that the government will allow, through SEMA, and I'll challenge SEMA on this, why would they allow our own people's government to be ignored by their identification for check purposes?
Shows you who's in control. Just a pun there, Minister.
No, I agree. I accept it. By all means, I'm not silly or not naive to the fact that a person is going to go, but hold on, you're not a cabinet minister. Why are you asking this question? I'm asking it.
No. What I'm saying is that we see that the financial institutions, they're the ones that call the shots. In some instances.
I think it would be unfair for us to try to answer that one.
The ministry that's in the room may actually want to acknowledge that that's what the people are saying, and that's what you are acknowledging. Is the financial services the ones that call the shots in this country? Because I don't agree with that.
Yeah. No, sir. What's being said is that we obviously are discussing the need for accuracy of ID, and there are limitations with just the physical flat card. So by adding the digital capabilities, we're seeing this across many countries, right? So I think there's over 100 countries that have a national ID program. Barbados, for instance, has just offered their digital version. We also want to leverage the features of the digital piece just for the same reasons you're discussing, that we can capture the accuracy of name or of any change of address as it happens in real time. And this card, the national ID card, could be used for election purposes, and it will be a valid form of identification for financial transactions. So it addresses the concerns that are being raised.
Forgive me, right? Obviously, as minister, this government, I support the national ID. But what I do respect is those who choose not to want it. Digital world is one that people see with some risk, and it may be 10 years down the line before they're comfortable. Until then, I have to examine the current process of identifications available to the people. Driver's license, passports, voter's ID. And we're not addressing the voter's ID problem. So if a Caymanian, a voter, come to me and say, Ken, I don't want a national ID and I'm afraid of that because of X, Y, and Z, I have to respect their opinion if I cannot convince them that it's the right thing to do. So if I fail in that convincing, right, and they say, I still don't want it, there's sources of information available for them. They don't have a driver's license and they never traveled anywhere before. The one card that they have is a voter's ID, and we're not addressing that part. And I cannot disenfranchise my people to say, you can't use your card because you're forced to go to the bank now and save your money. You can't put the money in the bank underneath your pillow like how we used to do back in the day, because everybody wants to trace the money. So what does that Caymanian do? What do I tell them?
Okay, Minister, we're going to have to cut you off there because we've gone past the commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
JN Money touching down again. Now you can send your US dollars at any location on island, including the BRAC. It's easy. Just walk with your US dollars. No need to convert to CI. This is another convenient service available at JN Money. They always find a way to make it easier and hassle-free. So remember, when you need to send your money and you only have US dollars, don't ever think of what to do. Just head straight to any JN Money location and send your money the fast, convenient, and affordable JN Money. JN Money, touching down again. JN Money, ranga to la friend.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross, now Advanced Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road. The Board of Trustees of the Chamber Pension Plan invites our members to attend the annual general meeting on December 7th at 6:30 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Chamber of Commerce Boardroom in Governors Square. Come out to meet our trustees, receive performance updates, and take part in our question and answer segment. The National Pensions legislation strongly recommends that all pensions contributors and retirees remain involved and informed on their pension plans. Refreshments will be served. Please visit our website, chamberpension.ky, or email admin@pensions.ky for further details. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you.
Switch from slow to the fastest, most reliable network to get this exclusive Digicel Christmas offer. It costs $0 to switch. It's free and you keep your number. That's not all. Switch today and enjoy 50% off your bill for the next 3 months. Stay on any Christmas plan to get 10 gigabytes of any use data every month for a year on us. That's 10 gigs for TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and more. Hurry in store and make the switch today with this limited time Christmas offer. It's the Christmas that keeps on giving. Digicel, Merry Christmas!
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. Just laying some ground rules now. We have another break that we have to take at 10 to. We have less than 20 minutes to go in the show, and we have 3 callers, not including the one that we have online at this point in time. I think Minister Brian is still with us, so we have to be, very economic when it comes to the time that we have left. Minister, go right ahead.
Thank you so much. I get the cue. I just want to know if the technocrats in the room agree with my point. How we're going to resolve that, and that's separate from the ID problem. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for allowing me my input, but we do have to resolve this voters' ID problem because not everybody's going to sign up to this right away. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Minister, next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Thank you. Just let me quickly say that I would have hoped that the minister, while he has a right like any other citizen to call in on the show, but I would have hoped he would have had another forum to make his points important points, very forcefully. Anyway, the reason I called, there's a relative of my wife's, a first cousin, that is essentially a stateless person. She's a Caymanian, but is not recognized as such. The lady was born in Cuba. She is not well mentally, and she has no documentation. She has no form of ID except an expired driver's license from many, many years ago. And what's going to happen to that kind of person when this national ID comes in force? Let me hasten to add, we, the relatives, have been trying to get her immigration status verified or clarified since 2017 with every possible organ of our government and have not had any success. We have involved MPs, we have involved the deputy governor, and we have not had any success in regularizing this person.
Okay. So, caller, thank you for that question. Back to Section 3 of the proposed bill, you have to have a right to reside in the island. And there is the case that if the person has participated in a registrable event, and a registrable event does include being granted asylum. So that person could be entered in the register. And in relation to the immigration status of the person, that is not determined by the registrar, right? So the right to reside is determined by work under the Immigration Transitions Act. So that aspect still has to be solved with that entity. But whatever determination is given there is what would be printed on the card.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Let's grab the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
I'm not sure exactly who you have on there this morning. I've listened to somebody on the radio, but I didn't get the original introductions, but I recognize at least two voices.
We have the team from the Ministry of Innovation in the studio, and including the two that you're referring to, we also have Mr. Trevor Gibbs, who's a senior policy advisor, and Mr. Sean Hewell, who's also a policy advisor as well. And I got a Oscar for pronouncing his last name right.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Go right ahead, sir. We're running out of time.
Yeah, I said, what is the background of these two policy advisors? Because
go ahead. Yeah, we're hearing you. We're hearing you.
Because you see, a lot of the problems a few other people like myself have is, and at the beginning of the show, I'd still like to hear these people explain who they are, why they're in Cayman, and where they come from.
They're all Caymanian, sir.
Okay, but I'd like to find out what's the background of these policy advisors.
I'm afraid we don't have time this morning for that.
We don't have time for democracy and transparency, because that's that T and the end of PAT keeps getting smaller and smaller. It started out as a capital letter, about 24 points. Now, the problem that we have is trust in government. Now, some of your people that are there, some of your guests, I heard mention it. Estonia has a lot of it, yes. Latvia and Lithuania. They came out from under communism. Systems that the public had no trust in. What we are trying to do is to cherry pick some of these things that are controlling of the citizens of our country. But their citizens trust their government a lot more than what we trust ours. You know,
and that's what we're trying to do here now by engendering trust by having these open discussions about the legislation. We're trying to engender trust in our government.
No, sir.
But we're not gonna debate that part of it here. We want you to get to the root of your point that you have, because in 3 minutes I'm going to a commercial break.
You're going to a commercial break now?
In 3 minutes. In 3 minutes.
Okay. What we don't have is trust, because you mentioned at the beginning of the show about not coming out. We had a 1975 draft development plan. We had, in which a lot of people participated. In the 90s, we had 75 was, development. In the 90s, we had discussions with the public. Over 2,000 people took part in a tourism development plan. In 2001, we had a physical development plan that had, again, over 3,000 people in all the districts. And then you end up with a government and successive governments that don't implement what the people had said. You have governments deposed because the real estate industry takes control of it. Now we have this coming in. We had recently an unlawfully established army, which is a mercenary force, and an unlawfully established Coast Guard. After they establish it, then they run and then they get legislation. Then they try to say we're rule of law. Rule of law only exists in this country on paper. You're asking me to trust. We have the penal code. If you violate the law, 121, anybody that doesn't follow the law and violates the law should be in jail for 2 years. You have a pension plan that for 10 years plus never submitted annual reports because they wanted to hide information from the public. So what we do not have is trust in our government, successive government. And you're asking people now to cherry pick this little bit out of Estonia. In Estonia, you have a population and you have systems where they don't pay for their internet. They get that free, and they can go various places. Each person has their own reader where they can transact from a phone or anywhere else.
30 seconds left, sir. 30 seconds left. 30 seconds left.
That's fine, sir. That's fine. You can cut me off, and I know you probably will, because
I'm not. I have to cut you off at a point because we have to go to a commercial break.
You don't have to. You only have to die.
Sir, this is not your first time calling on this show. You know the rules. You know the ground rules. Let's not get into that, huh?
We got $8 million we're going to spend when we're facing with a downturn in the economy next year. Government will have the ability of adding a zero at the end of that the time it's through. And you have things that are established for one thing end up with the other. And this is the fundamental reason, is the lack of trust in governance.
Okay, thank you very much for that, caller. Folks, we have to take a commercial break. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
60 and bossy with J and money. Win a trip in easy, trust me. Yeah. Come on, just send some money. A instant entry. Look how you're lucky. Bossy, J and money, bossy. J and money, send you go a yard. Scene, bossy. Jamaica well bossy. 60 and bossy. We well proudy.
Celebrate Jamaica 60 with J and money for a chance to win a dream vacation for two to Jamaica, including airfare, resort stay, and more. Send money for a chance to win. Your loved ones will also be entered for a chance to win a brand new car. Competition runs from now until December 24th. J and money 60 and bossy enough.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at J and Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
Bossy, Jamaica well bossy. 60 and bossy.
No J and bank account required.
Your dream home starts with a vision, and often inspiration is at the heart of that vision. Brand Source Home Gallery's in-house designers are here to help bring your vision to life. Whether you are remodeling or building a new home, Brand Source Home Gallery is your one-stop solution. Explore their kitchen cabinets, sinks, faucets, bath fixtures, tubs, vanities, and more. Let Brand Source's designers help and inspire you with your next project. Call 623-5000 and schedule an appointment with a design expert at Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, serving Cayman for 50 years.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. Gentlemen, it looks like we're going to have you in here again. Well, the 7th is next week, Wednesday, right? Is it? Somewhere around there? So
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we have our last caller. We're going to take that caller. We still need to respond to the previous callers as well. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm very well, thanks, and you all. One thing I'm certain of, I am me, and I guess everybody knows that this me is Sarah Alice May Coe. And good things come to those who wait. And for decades we've been hearing about an ID card, a national ID card. And I, for one, will be more than happy that I don't have to back around my passport, my birth certificate, my driver's license, my voter's card, and my CUC bill and my water bill and my phone bill to prove that I am me who lives wherever I live. And I think that there are some positives, many positives about getting this national ID card, and I'm looking forward to getting it. I know there's nothing perfect in life, and if we want to split hairs and tear things apart, we can find all sorts of reasons why we feel that we'll be, losing some rights or being taken advantage of. But I feel that we have to at least give this a try, and let's see how this works for our system. I remember and I'll try to be fast also, I can chat. The days we would go to the bank and we'd stand in line for not minutes, hours at times, standing in line to get your turn.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the counter to say, can I have $25 out of my account? They say, well, we haven't had your records updated for a long time. Can you give us some proof of where you live, who you are, the light bill or whatever else that they want, your driver's license, etc. Now, my question is, I believe that this new ID card would be also accepted by banks to confirm that I am me, who still lives in West Bay. Will that work, or?
Yes, it would. So,
right,
the banks will we've been discussing that acceptance piece with the banks, not only just for you, but also for those that have struggled with even availing of other forms of ID, that currently have no ID. They could get this basic ID so that they could actually get a bank account.
Right, that's good. And still finishing off with the banking bit, like I said, we'd stand in line for hours. But I know the convenience. It took me a while to say, yes, I'll get an ATM card. I don't have much money, but it's so convenient when you can go there in a short while to the machine and get out your $25 that you had in your account. So I see that this ID card, the national ID card, has so many pluses, so many things in favor of it that we need to give it a chance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I have enough trust in my government. Maybe I'm naive, that I don't feel that they're going to use my information for any nefarious purposes or anything like that. Now, I do, not being very tech savvy, I'm wondering now, how do I do whatever I need to do to just provide a certain amount of information to whichever entity I'm proving that I'm who I am? Obviously, there's going to be some method by which I can restrict them knowing all of my details when all they need to know is my address and my date of birth and my name.
Okay, yeah, and they will provide that to you. Again, they spoke about it earlier, but we'll have them repeat that for your benefit as well, caller. Thank you very much, for that. So, gentlemen, a lot to dissect in. We'll try to see if we can squeeze
short amount of time.
Yes, in a very short amount of time. I think the issue of trust is one that
yes.
that we needs to be addressed.
Sure, and I'd just like to thank both callers for one, a concern, and two, an endorsement. So in light of the trust aspect, you will recall, OC, earlier on in the show, and before on Monday, we talked about curtailing the regulation, making provision of the list. And why it was there is because we're building a system, and we're building it for the first time. And everything is about establishing the purposes of this act. So we have no intentions of ballooning that list, but to build trust for our public. We have removed that permission, or at least we will be having a committee stage amendment to propose the removal of that provision, so that the list, this minimal list that is your data in multiple forms all over the government, will be very clearly stated as this is the only list. So the view has always been that you can share the information that's in the register, but there's no information that comes back into the register. There's no financial information, no healthcare information. It is nothing coming back into the register. It is a very minimal data set. Everybody, we have a comparison online. If you want to take a look at it, it's at imagine.egov.ky. Take a look at the frequently asked questions page. We compare ID documents, and this document that we're talking about is the least. It has the least amount of information that is being used in the printed document, but gives you the capability to share more. So going back now to the second caller, in terms of sharing, you as a citizen, this is government giving back you control of your ID. She mentioned, I am me. This is your identity. The card has a QR code function that you could share any information that you are interested in sharing with anybody, and you turn on those features. They're defaulted to not be on. You turn on those features. If you go and avail of any particular service by your choice, by your consent, they tell you, we will be getting this information, and they have to tell you the purpose for which they're getting the specific information, and you agree to use the service if you want to avail of it. But it's about efficiency, and that's why we're doing this. It's laying the foundation to modernize the way we do business so that we can do it faster, we can spend more time with our family. We talked about digital signatures in a little bit. We did a very basic comparison on signing a document digitally compared to printing it out, signing it, and then emailing it to some person. The savings, when you add it up, if a person did 3 basic signatures a day, you could potentially save up to 2 days. You personally could save up to 2 days a year just by changing how you operate digitally.
Okay, Mr. Tibbetts, you had some observations in relation to the initial stages of this and some of the concerns that some of those persons who participated in the discussions had.
Yes, sir. And so remember I mentioned about bringing the team from Estonia down and so forth. And when that was presented, there were persons that were able to attend, and they saw the benefits, they saw the value, and back to the trust element of it. It was, I like the idea. I think it would be good to do, but we need to ensure that it brings with it the transparency element, because a big part of the trust for Estonia is implementing the kind of transparency that is in this bill, where you can see who has accessed your information, and that's in there. And we've not only is that in there, but even in the case where the provisions of the Data Protection Act, where that still enables law enforcement to do their part when necessary. The transparency and accountability is also built into the law, that it is still logged. It is and made available to the appropriate entity that can hold them to account to having used the information adequately or appropriately.
And that's transformational.
Okay. So, folks, just wanted to leave everyone with this bit of information and something for you to ponder on as well. On the 2nd of December, 1966, that would be 56 years ago?
Yes, sir.
1966, the 2nd of December, the telephone system was turned on, introduced to the Cayman Islands, the 2nd of December. Look at where we have come since then. I'm not sure whether or not people in those days had any queries about who's going to listen in to my phone calls. Are they going to be tapping my phones or whatever? We were glad to have a phone system, and we have seen it blown. While some people may complain about their phone bills and stuff like that, that's another story. But it has certainly moved us along on the information highway. And here we are again. Yes, there are concerns. There are valid concerns that people are prepared to listen to. And that is one of the reasons why we have these discussions. Now, I was not able to share this with you, but I'm sure that we will have it in our news. We see where the leader of the opposition has issued a press release asking for the government to postpone let me very quickly, asking the government to withdraw the National ID and Population Register bills from the next sitting of Parliament to allow more time for public consultation. I didn't raise it here simply because the persons around the table, they are civil servants, and this would be a policy decision made by the government, so I didn't want to put them on the spot with that. Gentlemen, I want to thank you all very much, folks. I don't have any closing comments. I just want to say this, though, that we try to give people as much time as possible, but there are veterans out there who know about the call-in system. They know that every 15 minutes we take a commercial break, and you know that if I say we have 3 callers behind you, that is a hint to you, that you need to be, that brevity is the spice of life. Folks, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. John Sterling, Drainy Bikes at 12:15 for Talk today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record, proudly brought to you by
Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Coca-Cola, available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors. Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Brand Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. West Bay Pharmacy, taking care of your health. And JN Money. From abroad to yard. Fast, affordable, convenient. Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.
Follow Radio Cayman on Twitter. Radio Cayman on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio Cayman.
Today's biggest news.
Radio